Hello.
Hi.
And
What's going
welcome
on?
to Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two girls, one ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That is Corinne. And
Hello.
I'm Sabrina. And I feel like we subconsciously are repping our other podcast friends right now. We were on the same wavelength. Ladies and Tangents.
Ladies and
Tangents. Creeps and Crimes sent us the cutest surprise merch.
We were on episode 99 of their podcast. And then
we
Sabrina, you can
came up
keep
with
telling
the
the story.
cryptid bean. This is the cryptid bean.
The little
Not
bean.
a weenie. It's
Not
a
a
little
weenie.
bean. Let's hear. If you're
It's a
watching
little
the video, I'm going to
Halloween-y
get
bean.
real up close and personal. 1 second.
It's so cute. But they were so nice. They were so nice to send us that sweatshirt too. Like it was the surprise sweatshirt came in the mail. And then we had our little cryptid bean.
A little cryptid bean, except for on the back, there's a little typo, and they wrote.
But it makes it better.
The cryptic bean. I was like, well,
bean.
That's its full name. It's the cryptid bean.
Right, the elusive bean. I know.
It
that's
speaks
great.
in riddles.
They really should just sell the whole design on their store.
They should.
But yeah, repping our friends. And I know we have quite a few new listeners as well who have messaged us from our various crossovers and from Morbid. So maybe we could do like a 30-second, here's our podcast. Here's what we do.
Yes. It's a pyramid scheme. You are now lost in the triangle. It's kind of cultish. Sorry that you didn't know that
openly
while you're joining. We're very transparent.
Yes.
Very.
That's the number one rule.
Yeah.
If you lie,
transparency
you're out.
like ghosts. Transparency like ghosts. It's very important.
And
here.
it is a ghost podcast. So we cover all things paranormal. That includes your typical haunted house, visits from loved ones, pets, all the beautiful haunting ghost stories. But then we also like to sprinkle in things like... I like how you said hunting. It sounded like hunting ghost stories. Haunting. Although that is on my mind because Missing 411, it's just the Hunters edition has just been stained into my mind forever. But we do also just oddities, cryptids, aliens, all the goodness.
Aliens.
We have
anything
multiple
honestly
types.
Weird.
Anything weird. Anything macabre. Sometimes there's little true crime crossovers, but for the most part, we're a paranormal podcast. We have 3 types of episodes. Our researched episodes that come out usually have about 10 to 15 minutes of banter at the top. So if you don't like that, you can skip on forward. And then we do cover our researched portion of the episodes. We also have encounters episodes where we read back the haunting tales that are emailed to us from listeners.
Please email us your stories. We want to hear everything. We love stories from your family members.
We love stories.
We just love stories. Holidays are coming up, and we ask. This is the one ask we ask of you. I mean, you can listen to us and tell your friends. We ask a lot of things, actually. But this is one new thing that we're bringing up again. This holiday season, when you're sitting around the table with your friends and family, ask them. Look them straight in the eye, very seriously. Do not smile. And ask, have you seen a ghost?
Do you see dead people?
Do you see dead people? Get their story and then email it to us.
As grandma's passing the homemade cranberry sauce at your Thanksgiving table, you touch hands and you say, Grandma, do you see dead people? This is the best time to collect ghost stories because, the holidays, I feel like we get an influx of news stories from our listeners because that's when you guys spend the most time with, well, I'm making assumptions here, but it's a good time to bring stuff up. Ghost-wise. Not family drama-wise. Yeah.
Well, any time of the year is a good time to ask your friends and family, your little kids, your neighbors' kids. Kids are creepy and they see a lot of things. So just ask away. You never know.
You never know. One more small housekeeping item at the top of the show. We have Patreon, and we are sending out a holiday card this year to all of our patrons. Yes. So if you are a patron by the last day of November, starting December 1st, we will start to roll out the mailing of those holiday cards. And so you'll receive it at some point in December, but just become a patron by November
Yes.
30th, right? 30 days in November.
Yes. And then in addition to that, we are going to have a couple extra bonus episodes over the holiday season for Patreon members only. So if you're going to miss us those 2 weeks that we take off every year, then you can join our Patreon and get some bonus content.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we should know, if you're new here, Corinne and I are bi-coastal. So I live in Los Angeles, Corinne is in Boston. We record on Zoom and we make it look like we're in similar-ish rooms. But we
We
very
try
far away
to.
from
We
each
both
other.
have the dark desks. But the challenge is, I wish people would see. I mean, I guess they could if we took pictures. People would be able to see the behind the scenes. But Sabrina, you sit in a normal chair because your black cabinet behind you is much taller. Mine is extremely low, so I plant myself very uncomfortably on like one of those little college fabric cubes that we had to slide underneath our dorm beds.
We need to get you like a
Not
children's
comfortable.
chair.
I know. I think our editor, Aiden, probably hates that I sit in this because I'm constantly moving. I'm like, But it's fine because we're here for a good time. Sabrina, I realized we forgot to bring up some important news that happened to you while you were in Boston.
What?
And
that
that
I
is-
got a weighted blanket?
No, that you got recognized.
Oh my God. We did forget. Shoot. What was her name?
Mallory? I think it was Mallory.
Wow. Good memory. Yes, Mallory. Okay. It's so funny. Nick and I were leaving the Omni Parker Hotel where we were staying. And I'm not kidding. Like we got maybe a block away. We were walking to meet Corinne and Brian. And I see this girl with like the cutest plaid skirt. And like her outfit was just amazing. And I looked at her outfit and I like was like, ooh, mental note. That's cute. Copy that later. And all of a sudden we keep walking. I hear Sabrina. And I was like, who knows me here? I turn and I took a second. I was like, do I know her? Like what? And then she's like, I'm a fan of your podcast. And then we talked very briefly. I think Mallory was with her parents and she was just like, I don't want to keep you. Okay. It was so nice to see you. And then so Nick and I kept walking and I was like, I wanted to tell her how much I loved her outfit. I didn't feel like I talked to her long enough. So I creepily found her on our Instagram followers. I
On
just
social
searched
media.
Mallory.
You DM'd
On
her.
social media. And then I DM'd her.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I love that.
That was the first time.
How exciting. Right.
It was really exciting.
I think the only reason it's happened to me is because I live in Boston where you're outside.
Yeah.
Like when I go somewhere, I'm walking, I'm exposed. Whereas you live in LA, it's not really much of a, there are a
I
few
walk
pockets of
everywhere, though.
neighborhoods. Yeah, but okay. But you're like in a
I sold my
neighborhood.
car.
You're not walking like, I feel like
Yeah,
Boston, the
yeah.
city itself, like every section of it can be considered touristy, but you're walking specifically within your neighborhood block.
Yeah. And I also feel like I'm head down. After I was grabbed by that man, I'm like avoiding people when I'm walking.
Yep. Yeah, you got to stay safe.
Yeah.
I don't blame you for that.
Exactly.
But it was very exciting that you met someone in person, that Mallory called your name.
It was. And it also is one of those things where it's so exciting because we truly, I feel like we know our listeners, or if we don't know you and then you introduce yourself, we will never forget you. And like I feel like we follow a lot of our listeners on Instagram because we used Instagram to like guerrilla market and just like
Harass
make people like us.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah. Into
It was
following
like,
us back.
we're just going to follow everyone and hope they follow us back. And a lot of people did. We're glad you're all here.
We're glad you're here. It's so fun.
But I did want to tell you,
Oh.
I got a weighted blanket and I'm really excited about it. And I talked about it briefly on our campfire stories, but it's maybe the most exciting thing that's happened to me in like weeks since I got back from Boston. And it has changed my life. It's amazing.
Did
Do
you
you
get an
have one?
actual
You
like
would love
the
it.
brand? No, I don't have one. Well, I have a Minky, which is like probably half the version of a weighted blanket. It's like not true weight, but it does have a lot of heaviness to it. So sometimes every night actually I bundle myself into it. But
Corinne,
yes, I've been under one before. It makes you, I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, the first time I ever experienced going under one, I did cry a little because there's just so much.
You're back in the womb.
Yes. It does something to you. It's like those
like being swaddled.
Yeah. I'm just reminded of all the pets that have anxiety that their parents like make them little like snuggy
burritos
sort of situations. Yeah, to like swaddle them in their, it's like, oh, that's their comfort sweater or whatever. But weighted blankets are not for humans.
Yes, it's amazing. I highly recommend it. This is not a sponsored thing. I just truly, it has changed my life. And it also makes making the bed really easy because it's so heavy that like sheets don't move as much.
Things don't move
they
around.
Just can't.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I wish we had
ever, like,
a weighted blanket
just need
sponsor so that this would work out a little nicer.
My brother,
that we're just like, we love weighted blankets.
My brother and his girlfriend got it for us for our wedding, and I just hadn't shipped it. And then I was going through all of our wedding registry, and I was like, why have I not gotten this yet? So I shipped it finally, and it's the best. Highly recommend.
Oh, I didn't realize
if you
that
have
in
anxiety
registries you can
or
just
anything.
So you can,
I
on
set
a
it
wedding
up.
registry, you can just let things. Oh.
Yeah, mine was specifically through Zola. And so I set it up where it doesn't ship until I decide to ship it, which was nice.
That is nice. Yeah, I've always wondered, because when people get married, like oftentimes I know where they live and it's not like there's a ton of space. So I've always wondered what they do with the, I know where you live. Actually, one of the nicest things about being engaged in wedding planning is that now I have everybody's address and it just makes life easier. Like I don't have to ask someone like, oh, can you send me your address again before I go over? I literally just go on Zola and I look up wherever I sent the save the date. I'm like, all right, I know how to get there. It is nice.
We should send all of our friends our Christmas card.
We should. We have their address.
Okay.
And we have all of yours if you are in Patreon.
We are going to show up to your homes. Maybe. I don't know. If we do a road trip, we should just drive past and like honk our little like van horn. Our little horn, our horn, is that what, car horn? Is that what it's called? Yeah. Why did it sound so weird?
Yeah.
Will be the Arms Akimbo intro song. Like the
la, 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 la. I mean, when you have Tesla, can't you customize it or something? Can't you choose?
Yes.
Your horn?
Yeah.
So now we need a Tesla. We need to go on a road trip. We need to figure out how to make our horn make that noise. Lots to do on our list. But number one is to tell you about what I researched this week. Okay. Eee! Do a little dance because this is an interesting topic. Okay, we said here we go. A few weeks ago, maybe months ago at this point, time blurs together. But it does. So it does in the space that we are about to talk about, which are back rooms. So I remember when I brought it up, Sabrina, you hadn't heard of back rooms and I knew very little about back rooms. So we're going to talk about back rooms, which are these liminal spaces that are said to exist in this sort of in-between. And the rooms appear a bit like abandoned office space. They're usually empty. They have long corridors, old, yellowing feeling just to the whole entire thing. It feels both familiar, yet also nostalgic, and also a bit anxiety-inducing, like you shouldn't be there.
That reminds me of the Severance office. Like the really long hallways.
Exactly.
You don't really know what's going on in each room, but I imagine it's a little bit more decaying. Maybe like Stranger Things, where it's like kind of the upside down where things are decaying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It very much is because it brings you back to the sort of like 90s, early 2000s. It's basically like what a building, if you went to a building that hadn't been updated or touched at all since the 90s, this is exactly what it looks like. But as I was writing this, let's remember the Severance comment. Not that there's really anything clearly that's going to come up in this, but I was thinking about that show the whole time I was writing this as well. All right. So in the back rooms, it's this liminal space somewhere that you find yourself in, but you don't intentionally go there. Instead, you accidentally slip into this void where you become lost and trapped.
No.
Right? So, I mean, overall, kind of an interesting,
out?
fascinating concept. Well, I don't know. There's a few tips that I'll tell you about to try to save yourself. But
you know what this reminds me of?
What?
Is the elevator game a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't you like step out into like a weird another universe?
Yes. Yes. And to that point, I was also thinking about, we did an episode, it was train themed, and I covered the silver peelin, and it reminded me of that train as well. And just there's just so much. Okay. So what's interesting about this is that, I mean, obviously it sounds super fascinating, but also very creepy. We don't want to go there, but it sounds like you can't actively put yourself there. But much like the Slender Man and so many of the stories and games and whatnot that we've covered, it started out as internet folklore. So it's basically a creepypasta of sorts.
Okay.
So it makes sense that it reminds us of so many other stories, because it is all of our minds coming together and being like, here are these creepy things that feel a little off that we're going to put together into this one creepypasta story. All right. Okay. So we're going to learn in this episode about how this creepypasta was created. Then we're going to hear some real life paranormal experiences that people have experienced that would suggest the backrooms in some shape or form may actually exist. We can theorize about that. And also some tips on, if you do find yourself in the backrooms, what could you maybe do to help yourself survive? So
I love that you just outlined your entire research, because that is, you very much took a public speaking class in college. Like, that's what they tell you to do in the beginning.
Wait, I did. I told you this story already.
I think we had to.
My final was, no, I did. I elected to do that. I did, and I regret it. But I had to take the public speaking class, and then, there's always like a final or whatever where you have to do a 10-minute or 15-minute presentation. And I think ours it was like 10 or 15 minutes on a like researched topic that you feel passionate about. And so I did seasonal affective disorder, because I'd recently been going to therapy and dealt with the whole depression thing, and was trying to like educate people on seasonal affective disorder. And at the end, I took those like little tiny, like basically like dime bags, and that I like bought, and put Epsom salt in all of them to hand out, to be like, give yourself a soak, feel happy after this. And it looked like I was getting Corinne. I told you this. I've already told you this. But yes, I'm shocked I didn't get called into the principal. I mean,
principal. Principal at college.
Wait, no. Sorry, did I say college? I meant high school.
Oh, this was high school.
This was a high school public speaking class. Yeah.
Wow, that's even worse.
I mean, my teacher, she was also the theater teacher. She was a bit eccentric, as many of them are.
So she loved it.
And I think she just was like, well, if it ends up being drugs, not my problem. I'll take 2. Whatever extra bags you got, I'll take them.
When I was in college and did public speaking, the one that I researched was online dating, and how, because my mom was doing a lot of online dating, and I was like so terrified for her that she was gonna get like catfished, or that like she was gonna get killed. So I ended up doing a whole presentation about how online dating, there's like so many terrible people out there. I made a fake profile with like a fake photo, and I like screenshotted all of the terrible creepy messages I got, and I did a whole presentation.
So you were trying to be you were like catfish, but the bait to show.
I was
what
the
would
bait
come
to
in.
show.
Mm-hmm. I'm sad. That's so scary. Like, you as a child thinking about, well, as your
like
mom's
18.
child. Yes, as your mom's child, thinking about the scariness of online dating. It is scary. I did it for 6
Someone's
years.
got to think of those things for her.
Right? All right, so the back rooms. We're going to talk about the lore. In May 2019, an anonymous user named 4chan posted on a paranormal board online where users could post photos and write comments. And they asked for users in that board to post, quote, disquieting images that just feel off. And so people began replying with photos. And I wish I could find this board easily. I couldn't, but I would love to see just all of the different photos that people have posted. But there is one photo that stood out, and it was a picture of an old office space, completely empty. The wallpaper patterned, yellow, dingy. The light brown rug covered wall to wall. The fluorescent lights overhead just flickering, basically, is what you would picture when seeing this image. But they're just there, adding this sort of yellow glow to the already very mustardy appearance of this room. And the photo is also taken slightly askew, so it's taken at an angle. It's not quite straight on. And we will have our editor put this in, but Sabrina, I'm going to show you the photo right now.
Oh, very Severance.
Right? It totally is. Yes.
Yeah.
So this photo, it started to blow up, basically. It caught the eye of many, many people. It gained a lot of comments, and it was reposted in many various threads and online forums. One commenter wrote that it's a picture of the back rooms. So this is kind of where this lore starts to take. People are like, being creative with what this photo reminds them of or what it could possibly be. So this one commenter says it's the back rooms and describes it as a place that has 600 million square miles of rooms just like this.
What?
That it's incomprehensibly large. Yes, it's a giant labyrinth. The biggest maze you could ever possibly think of, which is why people get trapped.
Right. And I'm immediately thinking being trapped in there. And you could probably spend a very long time in there not seeing another soul because it's so massive. Yes, exactly. And part of the lore too is like you find yourself alone in the creepypasta version because that's what's scary, right? Is like being completely alone in this crazy maze. I guess it's better. It's better than like being stuck with like creepy monsters and stuff.
Okay.
Oh no.
Well. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Okay. So it's this giant labyrinth, 600 million square miles of rooms. It's old, it's dreary, yellowing, dirtied wallpaper, moist carpets. So when you step on the carpets, it feels you can smell the moistness, and it is there's a squish to it. And then the fluorescent lights buzz above you. So classic like 80s, 90s office building. It almost reminds me a bit of a Blockbuster video too, like that sound of the lights. It's empty.
This also reminds me of my old apartment complex, the one with all the doors. And because all the doors, there were like 30 doors before you got to an outside door. And so because of that, all the moisture like got trapped in there, and the carpets would smell so bad.
Gross.
Mushrooms grew. There were mushrooms. So gross.
Yeah, so but you've already survived it, Sabrina. You found your way out of this place. The real life version of it. So this is the appearance. It's a little bit familiar, but a little bit off, right? Like you've been here before, but it doesn't feel good to be here. Sorry, I'm like moving my hair around weird. And also it's empty. There's usually no furniture. There might be like a few things from room to room, but for the most part, it's completely empty, but it doesn't feel that way because something is out there lurking in the back rooms. And this user wrote, quote, God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby because it sure as hell has heard you. So this was the first spin-off inspired by this photo. And so the comments, everything is collecting. People are upvoting this comment. And seeing these comments and this photo inspired 16-year-old Chris Freeward to write a story about the back rooms. He woke up at 5 a.m. 16. There's a lot of 16-year-olds in the story that inspire this. Yes. I guess,
creative little
we
16-year-olds.
Were all perpetually online when we were 16, right?
Yeah.
Still are. So he woke up at 5 a.m. and he began to write. So the story that he wrote, written in first person, goes like this. This person arrives at a health clinic for their appointment around 12:15, and it's just a routine doctor's visit. Like we can assume probably their annual checkup. they've been to this doctor's office before a few times. So they know the place. The building is a little bit older, and they kind of note that it does have that nostalgic feel to it and makes them feel sort of transported back in time to when they were living in the 80s and 90s as a kid and, like going to their parents' place of work and like wandering around all those old buildings. They were noting basically that the flickering fluorescent lights, the white tile flooring, and the beige walls, they're just representative of a time of this person's past. So as this person enters the office, they're suddenly struck with deja vu. They get to the front desk and they check in with the woman who's working at the desk. And this is where we learn this person's name, the person who's going in for their doctor appointment. And their name is Gary Johnston. Gary checks in just fine. He's handed a clipboard with some paperwork, and he goes and he sits in the waiting room to fill out his paperwork and wait for his name to be called. Sinking back into his chair, Gary, tired, rests his head back onto the wall. But when he does so, the wall gives a little. He doesn't hit the hard cement or whatever type of wall it is.
Drywall.
Instead, his head starts pushing through. So he gets up and he turns around to examine the wall, but it appears perfectly fine. He doesn't see any indents of where, the drywall could have crumbled around his head. Nothing is out of place. It's a perfectly normal wall. So then he reaches out and he touches the wall, his fingers slipping through it. Startled, Gary.
Like totally slipping through it? Or,
yes.
Or is it like, I'm imagining like tarp, like, or just fully going through it?
I think fully going through it is how it was written. Sort of like this weird matrixy wormhole. So Gary's startled and he kind of fumbles around and trips and falls. And he ends up falling completely through the wall. He's on his back now, on the ground.
Gary!
And when he gets up and gets to his feet, Gary finds himself in another place. He's not in the doctor's office anymore.
No, Gary.
The room is amongst a series of other rooms. The carpet smells damp, moldy. Patterned wallpaper was quite yellowed. There are no windows or doors, just hallways to other rooms. One plastic blue school chair sits in the middle of one of the rooms. So Gary gets up and he begins to hurry through the halls and through the rooms, searching for an exit, trying to make sense of where the hell he is. He cannot find
I can just feel the panic.
An exit. Mm-hmm.
No.
And then he hears movement in the distance. He hears footsteps, but it doesn't sound like a human's footsteps. So he's not thinking that this is something or someone that could help him. Instead, the footsteps feel off. It feels more like a monster, an animal of sorts. And then he hears a gargling snarl. He turns, working his way through the halls and empty rooms, trying to create distance between himself and whatever the hell is there in the distance lurking, snarling.
Eek.
And after what seems like forever, Gary finds his way back into the room where he began. And he's so exhausted. He's so confused. He's lost. He's seemingly hunted by something out there.
Yeah, what is this?
He collapses to the ground crying, and the footsteps get closer. And that is what Chris wrote. That's the end? That's the cliffhanger. That's the creepypasta. Yep.
Did he try? I know you don't know the answers to these, but did he try going back through the wall that he came through in the first place? I don't know.
I think we can, I don't know. I have no idea. I would presume that probably, well, I don't know. I don't know what I would do in that scenario. Would I think to immediately go through the wall behind me?
I would.
And poor Gary's right. Okay, so this is what Chris wrote. 16-year-old Chris wrote this, and he posted it on Creepypasta. Mind you, this is only a few years ago. This is like 3 years ago that this started to pick up traction.
So it's recent.
This is super recent.
Gary's only 19 now. Gary, you have a sick mind.
You're Chris. Oh, who is Gary? Gary, I guess.
Mind. Okay.
Yes, through writing.
You would fit in with us so well. A sick minds together.
I know. Right? He should write a whole.
Can we create a podcaster, right? Yeah. I want to create one.
We should. Let's see if it gets anywhere.
Do it.
Okay, but this is what Chris wrote. He posted it on all of these forums. He posted it on Creepypasta, and that is where people began to build on the story. So he was inspired by some other comments, but then he kind of like laid the groundwork for here's what it actually could feel like being inside of the back rooms. Yeah. And then another 16-year-old, Kane Pixels on YouTube is his name. He uploaded a forgotten footage type video inspired by this creepypasta showing a cameraman. It's like I watched it. It's actually very creepy. But it shows basically like this group of kids and one of them has a camera, or like young men. And the cameraman kind of like fumbles and falls. And as he falls, he goes through something. He doesn't stop falling. And then when he wakes up, he's in these back rooms and he still has the camera. Alone? So everything that was on him, everything on his person also was blipped into this. Actually, there's a gamer term for this. Let me scroll down. It's called no clip. So instead of where I said blipped, I should have said no clip to be more accurate. Okay. But in the back room specifically, you can no clip from your perceived reality into another dimension. So that's basically like if we think about all of the movies where people do that, you like kind of fall into another
you just like
dimension.
Fall in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I'm picturing this as like Blair Witch Project.
That's what it feels like, because it is, you never see the person. You never see whoever Kane, I'm assuming it was himself. Like it's just the video. It's very found footage style.
That's cool.
And so this person fell, and then they wake up in these back rooms where this person is now searching for a way out, eventually coming in contact with a monster. It kind of looks like a weird series of, honestly, if I put like the stand that my light is on and this podcast stand and just kind of taped it together, it kind of looks a little bit like that. Like there's kind of these long, skinny,
lanky,
black things, sticks. It's like a stick bug, but black and creepy. Okay. Yes. So that was just what Kane had put as the monster in his series.
Interesting, because I was picturing it as like a big, like I was picturing almost the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk. Because I was picturing heavy, snarling boots.
No, it's very like alien-esque, where you have no idea what the hell this creature is. Like it's something otherworldly. And you're in some other world.
It's probably super fast and can like crawl on the ceilings. And it starts out in front of you, but next thing you know, it's behind you.
Okay, Sabrina, I'm glad that you brought this up, because this leads me to my next point, which is, so Kane Pixels, the guy that created that original YouTube, he's created a whole series now based on the Backrooms. And a lot of more people have come to sort of like flesh out the idea of Backrooms, adding additional rooms, additional creatures, these Montauk Project-like organizations. But some people feel very strongly that the original lore should stay as that, and that it shouldn't necessarily expand and have all these spinoffs. But all that being said, I'm going to tell you a few variations of these levels, and then I'm going to tell you what another YouTuber said or a film group said could be ways to catch the monster or survive the back rooms. So you can have
those are helpful
a little
tips.
bit of a leg up. Yes. Okay.
Because I wonder, I know this was started as a creepypasta, and same with Slender Man, but there's some part of me that, one, I feel like we create things out of things that we already know. And then two, what if speaking this or creating this kind of creates it in existence?
These are some of the theories that I had at the end too. Because it is, once we get beyond the lore, and I give you some examples of what people actually experience in real life, it does sort of feel like that. Okay. All right. Well, so despite many people being like, it should just stay as the original sort of simple story, there are many, many levels, many different spinoffs and versions. But I'm going to tell you just a few levels from one of these versions. So you might find yourself, if you no clip or if you fall into this in-between backrooms dimension, you might find yourself on level 0, which is the lobby. And this is where we would find ourselves should we enter somehow the room that's in the original photo. So the original photo is from level 0. So if you end up in level 0, you're going to spend your time wandering around rooms and hallways trying to avoid these humanoid entities called hounds. If you enter level 1, level 1 is the habitable zone. And after many days of wandering around the lobby, a lost person might find themselves here. I don't know how you get there, if you just sort of no-clip into that area, or if you walk into a room and suddenly you're there and can't get back to level 0. But in level 1,
you sound like such a gamer when you say no-clip.
Right? I know, I'm cool. But level 1, it's a dingy warehouse. It's foggy. There's puddles of water pooling on the cement floor. And again, the hounds. So there's a lot of like moistness and monsters in every level.
Oh.
Pretty gross. And then level 2 is called Pipe Dreams. It's a long service tunnel with pipes on the wall, and light from the outside can enter the pipes, and it basically heats it up. So it could get up to 100 degrees in there, and you're kind of wandering around these pipes. But I think what's so mean of this dimension is that unlike the other levels where there are no windows, there are no doors, it's just rooms and hallways, here you get sunlight coming in, but you can't necessarily find the source of the sunlight. So you know you're near.
Interesting.
You know it's close, but you're still lost.
Okay.
But once someone basically gives up trying to escape and relaxes and accepts this tunnel as it is and as their home, and it's just like, okay, not saying give up as in like you lay down and you're like, I'm going to let the hounds come get me, but give up as in you're like, okay, well, I guess this is my life now and I'll just live in these tunnels and find my way to work around it. As soon as you switch that mindset and accept the tunnels as your home, it's said that you will be given a chance to escape. So something will appear to you and you'll have your opportunity to get out.
It's kind of like in Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone, where they're in the vines. I can't remember what they're called. But they have to just like give in, and then they go through.
Fall down. Yeah.
It's kind of like quicksand.
Right? To your point, it's all things that like we've thought of as humans and then put together into this one story.
The more you fight it, the harder it is.
Mm-hmm. So then on YouTube, there's a group called the Film Theorists. And they went into Kane Pixel's videos of all the backrooms, and they looked at all of the videos and they dissected it. So based on the creepypasta and based on Kane's work, they came together to tell you basically how you could potentially survive the backrooms should you find yourself there. So here are a few of their suggestions. Keep your hand on, and this is assuming that you're in the original sort of like level 0, yellowed wallpapered rooms, hallways. Labyrinth, giant labyrinth. So keep your hand on one wall the entire time as you wander through rooms so that you can find the outer wall and exit the maze. Because
like the portal?
Either the portal or some sort of door that opens. Because if it's a giant maze, it's assuming that it's not. How do you get in there? How does someone eventually, they're assuming that there's an exit somewhere. So you just have to find the outer perimeter or work towards that. Okay. Another tip is to peel the wallpaper or leave clothing items or scuff up and mark the rooms or the walls that you have touched and been in so that if you do circle back, you'll know that you don't need to explore that room. And also they suggested using your shoe to knock down ceiling tiles in the hallways so that you know what hallways you've traveled through.
Oh, okay. That's smart.
Mm-hmm. If you do this, it will also help you, aside from just knowing where you've already explored, it will help you start to understand the areas and what loops back on itself. And this is important should one of the hounds, one of the monsters, be tracking you. Because if you know that general area enough, then, or like the patterns that are repeated, you might be able to find a way to maneuver around it and loop back behind the monster, saving yourself. But also, you then have an opportunity to track the hound, assuming that the hounds know the way out. They might not just live there forever.
Okay.
This is kind of
outsmart them.
Blade Runner-esque a little bit too.
Yeah. Yes.
Number 4, if you find supplies, take the supplies. If you see a chair, if you see a ladder, if you see a rope, if something is there, you could possibly use that as a tool in the future. So take everything that you find. And
probably hard
lastly,
to carry everything though.
It is, but also these rooms are extremely... There's hardly anything in any of them. For the most part, there's nothing. So if you do happen to find something, grab it. It's not like there's a few things in every room. They're mostly empty.
My question is, what if there's like a weird, like Saw? You know how in Saw, the idea is that everyone could survive if you just work together? Mm-hmm. Or there's like some, I don't know the specifics of it. But what if, like I'm picturing Gary's story where he came into this room with the chair. What if all he needed to do was like climb on top of the chair and go through the ceiling tiles? Like the idea that the first room you end up in is actually the same way you can get out. But most people will go outside of that room.
Will venture out. Yeah. Well, and actually that is the very last tip, is try to climb through the ceiling tiles and follow the electrical wires or the air vents, because the air ducts, they have to lead somewhere. But also, Sabrina, you're making me think, what if these hounds aren't actually creatures hunting anyone? What if there's all these beings from other dimensions that get no-clipped or like put into this labyrinth, and they're supposed to work together, but everybody's so foreign to each other that we assume, like, what if these things are thinking that the humans are the monsters? And so they, after a long time of wandering this labyrinth, they're just like, every man for himself. I guess I'll kill the monster. And that's this creature killing the person.
Us. Or what if the hounds are actually people who've gotten stuck in the back rooms for so long that they turned into these creatures, and they finally see a human and they're trying to follow the human to get out?
Yeah. Oh, ew. Yeah, some sort of zombie-like thing. Okay, so very fun but unsettling lore. With many very talented artists who create pictures and videos and YouTube series and simulations to make you feel like you're truly seeing the back room. So if you want to go to YouTube, you can see a lot of that, and it is very unsettling. And there are also some actual video games that exist where you can be in the back rooms. But what if in some way the back rooms truly exist? It's not just a creepypasta.
Yeah.
To add to this lore, we don't actually know where the original photo came from. So the original photo was posted by someone who's anonymous, and that yellowed room's location has not been confirmed. There have been people who think that they know where it is, but it has not been confirmed. And so some people theorize that it could actually be an image captured from the back rooms.
Oh.
And one of the things that I think is interesting about the real experiences that people have is that, I mean, obviously we know that there's the creepypasta, and that's been around for a few years. And so it's no surprise that it could enter our subconscious as people and enter our dreams, and we start thinking about it and we start creating these memories of possibly being there, even though we haven't been. But what I think is really interesting is that before the lore, there were already people describing this in their dreams. People were already in this place. It didn't have a name back then. People didn't necessarily find each other who also had similar experiences, but they were online. They were searching for people who had explanations of this place that they kept going to in their dreams or felt like they'd spent eternity in when they fell asleep.
Oh.
The back rooms, apparently in real life, outside of the creepypasta, are actually a place that we slip into while dreaming. So there's no physical threat of you reaching through a wall and falling there. But instead, when you go to bed at night, you might fall asleep and you might enter the back rooms. Nope, exactly. It's very creepy. It got me thinking about my own dreams. I started to reflect on some of the regular places that I end up in my dreams. And there's one where I'm like, that could be one of the levels of the back rooms, but
I guess the only benefit is if it happens in your sleep, then there's the idea that you can wake up from it. Nick is walking by for anyone watching the video. Not a ghost.
Not a ghost.
But then if it happens in real waking life and you end up there, that feels scarier because it's like, what are your chances of getting out of that?
Right. Not good. Not good. We'll tell you that.
Not good.
But if that photo ended up being
like
an actual photo captured from the back rooms, then maybe there is a chance to survive. You're not doomed.
But then also, if you go into it in your sleep, does that mean that your astral being is stuck there? And if your astral being can never come out, do you wake up half of a person because your soul is missing?
All great questions. Now it feels very insidious, right? Like there's so many different levels to this. And I guess we won't know the answer unless we know what being or why people are here. What is putting everyone together here in this place?
Okay.
Also, unlike in the lore where people are alone, people who've experienced what they believe to be the back rooms in their dreams all have this same common thread, which is that usually someone they know starts out in their dream, someone that they know is there, and that familiar person and familiar but also unsettling setting, like being in like a dentist office or your school at night, that person will lead you to the back rooms. So you're in the setting that you know, but it feels a little bit off. And then you're with this person that's familiar to you, like a teacher, and you trust them. And so you follow them. But then they bring you there.
So unfair.
Right. Well, I mean, it's
don't trust anyone in your dreams.
Yeah. It's not them. It's something pretending to be them leading you.
But
back
that makes
into
me
this
even
labyrinth.
more mad.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to give you 2 examples that I found. There are so many examples online, but here are 2
and then we have
that I pulled out.
Listener story at the end of this that is also
Backrooms.
an example. Mm-hmm.
Eek. Okay. Amazing.
Eek.
All right. So this was posted by someone who, well, I'm saying they're anonymous, but they had posted and then deleted their account. So it just says deleted user. So I don't know who this person is. Maybe they're in the back rooms now. They wrote,
no.
That's mean of me to say. Sorry, I take that back. I hope they're not. They wrote, "Hi, I had a dream last night too, and I think I was in the back rooms. My dream started with me walking in school following a teacher, and we suddenly were in the hallway that didn't exist. He turned and looked at me, and then my hand and the wall next to me were glitching or something, and then I fell really hard, like I was standing in a falling elevator. Out of nowhere, in a very small room with 2 other people, there was a door opening, but no door. And when I looked out, there was this big open place and other door openings in the walls leading to other rooms or other hallways. Everything was very light, but there was no lamps. There were no lights. There were also no shadows. The color of the walls and the floor, etc., were all just this yellow, light yellow, off-white color. The 2 people who were there told me that there is a creature after us and that we have to protect each other. Suddenly, they gave me a water gun. I turned and I saw another door opening at the other side of the room that we were in, and I went down these short stairs. And there was an even smaller room, and on one side, there was a really small, weird inside playground for children with bright colored lights, red, blue, and yellow.
Ooh.
And doesn't it remind you of like the old McDonald's playpens from when we were kids?
I was also thinking Waverly Hills because someone said like they recently went and inside there was an old play set inside the place.
Ugh, so creepy. It was like stuck in the wall or something. Like it was a part of the playground that was stuck in the wall. And in the same smaller room, there was a door opening with a hallway going to the right, but I didn't look because I was scared that the creature would be in there. So I went upstairs to the other people and we just stayed there. We saw the creature 2 times in the door opening trying to approach us, but we were all scared and scared it away with our water guns. It was a very weird creature. It was all black and it had 2 white round eyes. The shape of the creature was not really clear. I would say humanish, but also not. It was also kind of glitchy, had this noise screen thing, but black. While all of this was happening, there was also a moment where I fell again and ended up standing in a weird place in my school where it all began. When I moved, I fell into the back rooms again. I woke up from my alarm after all of this. Which, that one to me is so creepy because it's making me think that the original person, I think his name is Chris, who wrote the whole story, it makes me think that when he woke up, like a 16-year-old waking up at 5 a.m. to write this story, was he actually just in the back rooms and woke up from this dream and felt inspired by it all to write, but truly was actually like the messenger to tell people what the back rooms actually were like. It's all very creepy.
We should have Chris on the show. Come join us.
I know. Chris, find us.
I also, that story makes me think, you know, the idea that people say like we're living in a simulation and this is actually a video game, or just like it's not real. And that the back rooms kind of makes me, it almost like emphasizes that theory in the sense that you glitch into this other world, which makes me think like without the simulation, that's what our world looks like.
Well, that's kind of
it's
part
like
of the theory
basic
too.
coding.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of, well, also, I mean, not to go too far off course with what we're talking about and keeping it mostly to backrooms, but if you're on like Dream Talk, or if you read a lot of scary stories that are posted about dreams and theories about dreams, there are a lot of people that talk about when you're lucid dreaming, when you realize you yourself are dreaming, if you say it out loud to someone, the characters in the dream will start to freak out. And there was one user on TikTok, I'm going to attempt to find, I'm going to butcher this, but next time I'll come next episode with the answer of who posted this.
Let's see if you remember.
Yeah, we'll see. But it's this woman was chronicling, she writes in a dream journal, and she was chronicling all the different times that she's been lucid dreaming and her interactions with like the sleep, she calls them the sleep police, where these people will realize that she's not dreaming and they'll basically be like, you can't be aware of what we're doing. And she was talking about,
what are they doing?
Right? Like there's all of these things around orchestrating your experience. And so sometimes we think it's a dream or a nightmare, but it's not. And she did have examples of, there was one time where she like basically was flown over like the dream center and all this stuff. So it could very well be an entire operation and simulation going on.
So much work for those up higher beings.
Right. I'm like, what do you get paid?
Yeah.
Did you see that? Have you watched that Daniel Radcliffe show?
No.
Holy Ones, I think is what it's called. Where, basically the premise of it is like when people die, they go to heaven, but heaven is actually just one of many organizations and God is your like CEO. And they all get put to work like controlling Earth, and they all have jobs again. And Earth is
that's
like
kind of fun.
Yeah. A hot mess in the grand scheme of the universe and all the different corporations out there. All right. So another example was posted by Juancho GYT, and they wrote, at the time of writing this, I just found out about the backrooms after I had a dream about it. The dream was like a normal day. I was playing with my little cousin and all that stuff because I was bored of playing Valorant. And I remember that when my cousin was about to close the door so that I couldn't catch her, I stopped the door with my foot and then I tripped and I fell because I lost my balance. But I didn't hit the ground. I just fell through the floor. And as I was falling, I remember seeing pure darkness. When I ended up in the back rooms we all know about, somehow it felt real. The wet carpet with the whiteboard marker ink smell, the lights and all that stuff that the back rooms has. I was just walking around hoping to see an exit to this place. One thing that I can highlight here is that somehow everything felt familiar, as if I was here before. And I mean like years before. But then I just saw what looked like a person, but it was all black. And when I got a little closer to that quote unquote person, it was all distorted and the ink smell was getting stronger when that thing was getting closer to me. And then when that thing caught me, everything just disappeared and I woke up. Also, that thing that was chasing me didn't have a physical form. It just kept distorting on these unrecognizable shapes. After waking up, I just got straight to my PC and I started looking for information about my dream since it felt way too real to just be a dream. And so here I am writing this comment, sharing my backrooms dream after reading some information about the backrooms. So that seems to be what a lot of posters experience, where they never heard about the backrooms until they go searching for an explanation to their dream.
Right. It's so interesting that this user got caught by, they're called hounds, right? A hound?
At least in the creepypasta, yeah.
Okay. And then woke up. Like, it almost makes me wonder if you're supposed to get caught by them.
I don't know. It makes me think that they're testing. It almost makes me think Hunger Games a bit, where it's like, or Maze Runner again, where it's just like you're testing who can get out. But, well, also let's talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Are you actually, I mean, she in that movie gets killed an infinite
how many times?
Number of times in all these other different versions of her life. And so what if that's what's happening here? They're like trying to find the closest version of someone that they need for something, or just are testing our astral forms. And so sometimes your astral form gets killed off in the back room. Maybe you don't know that you're in another.
Maybe when you go to the back room, going back to my simulation idea, they're recoding you. And you need to go in there and the hound catches you because that's your new coding.
What an aggressive way to recode someone. Like, who came up with that idea?
I don't know. Maybe
also,
that's just what it's
aliens? Like, is this what happens when we get abducted?
Oh, that's also a good point. Yeah, maybe it's not really a dream. You're actually being abducted, and this is the way that this is the experience.
This is the little game. It's like when people have, I mean, it's horrible and we don't condone animal violence at all, but like it makes me think of like the chicken fights, the rooster fights, where people will put them in a pen and see what they can do. And so it makes me wonder, like, is this some sort of alien abduction where we're thinking it's a dream, like a really strange dream, because we fall asleep and wake up in the same place, but there's some other creature that's like taking us and putting us together in these mazes for their own entertainment, to watch the fear of the little puny humans on planet Earth.
I just hope I never end up there.
Yeah, me too. It's very unnerving.
I don't want to know.
Also, another thing, you said earlier that what if the point is to work as a team? And in the creepypasta lore, a lot of people are alone, but in the actual forums where people post their real experiences, a lot of people are not alone. A lot of people are in groups, similar to what some of these users that I just read about, like their experiences of being in other groups of people. And so it is interesting because it makes me wonder if people wake up and they think that all of these other people in their dreams are just like a part of the dream, just like dream characters. But what if they are a bunch of other people's consciousness coming together and all placed together, and they just assume the other person is a dream person, but they're all real and there and supposed to truly be working together. Like you could walk on the street and you're like, holy shit, that's that person from the Backrooms dream.
That is really fascinating. Yeah, because they say that you can't dream anyone you've never seen, and like even if you pass someone on the street, they can end up in your dream because you've seen them and it's stored in your subconscious. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the time that I felt like I astral projected, and I very much believe that I did. There was the woman that I was talking to who perhaps is my spirit guide, but I very much, if I saw her on the street, I would be like, oh, I 100% know that that's the woman from my dream.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had an interesting experience a few days ago. Brian and I were walking and someone walked by us and he didn't smell the smell. But I was like, oh, did you smell that? He was like, no. I was like, you didn't smell that cologne or that perfume? And he was like, I didn't notice. But it was so incredibly strong to me. And it was a scent that I've actually, it's going to sound like such an odd comment, but it's a scent that I am almost certain that I've only smelled in my dreams. So I was like, ooh.
Oh.
What kind of weird perfume is this? I'd never, and it was so overpowering when I walked by that person.
I just got chills. That is so,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe that. And I feel like I don't smell in my dreams.
I think I do.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It made me, I said something to Brian, like in the moment, I said, oh, wow, that's the smell that I smell a lot in my dreams. And then I didn't say anything more to him because I didn't want to freak him out. But I was like, what if this is the example where people kind of like slip into other dimensions and they don't realize that they're experiencing different versions of their life? And what if I am now slipped into some version of it that I've experienced only in like the dreamscape, but I actually never did truly wake up from it? I'm in it now.
You're in the dreamscape.
I don't know.
Well, I'm glad I'm a part of your dreamscape if that's the case.
Me too. Okay, so many people who experience this, which are quite a few, and curious to hear if any of you guys have experienced the back room, but many people take to the internet for some sort of explanation, and they find themselves in the same place as others on these internet forums talking about their dreams. Katie Diaz is one of the people who posted, and she posted on a forum 7 months ago and said, I keep having dreams of me about to enter the back rooms, and then I suddenly wake up. A while back, I did enter one, and then I heard my grandma calling me. My grandma has been dead since 2017. So to me,
guardian,
right? It sounds like the back rooms do exist in the astral plane, and they're bad. And so Katie's grandmother did come forward to basically try to warn her and protect her and call her back out of whatever the back rooms are.
Yes, 100%.
I have chills from that. Ugh.
Thank goodness.
Right?
See, this is the true test for guardians. Actually, Corinne, this is such a small thing and I don't know.
I wasn't sure what you were going to ask me. I was just like, no. And I thought you were going to be like, let's go to the back rooms and find my guardians. No,
this is what I was going to say is that I actually think I had an experience with a guardian the other day. I was driving in my car, and I'm terrified of dying in a car or a car accident. I was driving, and I was on the 405, and it's kind of trafficky, but people are going pretty fast. And my passenger side seatbelt, I'm alone in the car, starts rattling, like kind of very loudly.
Ooh.
And I saw a car and I was like, that's weird. But then I was like, I feel like it's trying to pay attention to like my right side of my car. And there was a car truly like merging across all of the lanes. And I slowed down and it cut right in front of me. And Sabrina. I had this moment of like, oh, is this my guardian?
That's it. That is it. I don't know how you could even be questioning, is this my guardian? Like 1000%. Why else would that happen? And you also always say you think you're going to die in a car accident. So this is the perfect situation where like maybe if that rattling hadn't happened and if you hadn't kind of like consciously made efforts to slow down and look at it.
Yeah.
That would be how you died maybe. There you go.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have died from that,
you.
But yeah, I now believe in my guardian. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. What a big moment in Two Girls, One Ghost history. 5 years later, and Sabrina, 5.5 years. And you're finally admitting that you have a guardian.
I finally acknowledge you.
All right. So to end this, I have just a couple paragraphs I will read to you.
Okay.
Food for thought. All right. Both on forums like Reddit and on TikTok, people have been sharing these stories over the past few years of their experiences with the back rooms, often not knowing what they were until searching for an explanation. There are various backroom games that you can play and pretend to be in the maze, but what freaks a lot of people out with these games is that oftentimes in these video game versions of the back rooms, either the rooms themselves, the decor, or the creatures that they see match what they dreamt about as children many, many years before. It's like we've all actually been there before. It exists in our subconscious, and now it's leaking out of us. It's being labeled as lore.
Out of us.
While a version of the backrooms seems to have existed in our dreams for a long time, could this dream be more than a dream? Are we truly entering a space, another dimension, or are we floating across the veil and experiencing part of what's beyond? The backrooms.
That's
a mystery.
Good question. I don't like the imagery of leaking out of us.
Sorry.
No, it's very descriptive, and I feel like I'm just imagining it, picturing it, and it's very unsettling.
We're just oozing the back rooms.
Oozing
Maybe that's how
rooms.
creepypastas are born. It's like it all is within us and experienced by our souls in some way. And then something happens in the world where we all just start to leak it out a little bit. Like a little faucet. Drip, drip. Drip, 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 drip.
Okay, I do not want to go to the back rooms. I'm not going to suggest that, Corinne, but I do want to.
No way.
It's kind of like how, what was his name? Adam something, who created Dear David. I so badly want to create a creepypasta, but then I'm afraid that then we'll put it into existence and everyone will blame us and come at us. And it's like, sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things too. It's like the more you think about it, with the paranormal, the more you think about something, the more you open yourself up to it, right? Like that's what everybody warns us about constantly.
We know that.
And the month of October proved that to us. However, but is that what's happening with the back rooms too? Like are people, maybe as children they experienced it, or growing up they maybe found themselves there once or twice. But then the more that we learn about it, the more that we think about it, will we end up there? Are we wishing it for us? Subconsciously. It is interesting because I don't know that this is necessarily the back rooms, but I've had this one dream probably like 4 or 5 times. I actually have many dreams where there's a whole nother town and building, and I'm so familiar, like I could draw them. Like I'm so familiar. I've been there so many times and explored that area in my dreams so many times.
Me too.
Yeah, isn't it so strange? And you're like, how did I even, like, how did I construct this whole city? It's like the Sims 2.0. Like, we're just living in a certain version. But there is one dream that I've had quite a few times where I do get that weird, unnerving feeling. And I'm in a really long hallway. And in my mind, every time I dreamt it, I'm like, oh, I just must be in this huge mansion and in the basement of this giant mansion. But it's this really dark, long hallway without any windows. And then the doors all have different rooms, but they're all like old, creepy children's rooms. Like it's a children's bedroom. Wait. And then I've spent a lot of time kind of like sitting at the like little tiny like children's drawing desk, just being like, I guess I'll just wait it out until I wake up. And I always thought those dreams are really weird and I don't know what they're about. But maybe I'm in some weird back room.
Times.
Yeah, like 5 times.
It sounds like you are.
And nothing comes of them. Like I don't meet anyone. I don't talk to anybody. I just wander around these like creepy old children's rooms.
Maybe you're one of the
monsters.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the like holding facility before, you know, in like Monsters Inc. When they get like, all right, the like light goes on and then you get to go in. Maybe I'm just like, waiting.
Go
and
through
like
the doors.
Well, you know, I'm always early. I'm never late. And I'm very rarely on time. I'm always early. So maybe even in my dreams, I'm like, oh man, I got here 45 minutes early. I got to wait until it's my turn.
Just going to do some drawing real quick. Okay, well, that brings up an interesting parallel that comes up in our listener story this week. The dreaming about something very similar over and over. So this is our listener, Casey, and it's called Have I Been to the Back Rooms? Hello. Okay, to preface, this story is going to be all over the place and slightly chaotic as I am essentially writing this as I'm coming upon this realization. Insert obligatory, but still lovingly given. Thank you for making this podcast and being 2 cool ghouls, blah, blah. I've been trying to write out an email comprised of all of my encounters and stories, but have put off sending it, but this needs to be addressed. I don't know what to do or think. The story.
Okay.
So to start off, I do not read creepypasta. When I read something on the internet, I'm 100% more likely to assume it's real rather than a creepypasta. To make matters more peculiar, I have never even heard of the Backrooms until last week when I was listening to an episode of Two Girls, One Ghost, and I think Corinne mentioned it briefly. I didn't go home and Google it. Honestly, it kind of was wiped from my mind. I'm a house cleaner and I listen to the podcast while I clean, so I didn't really have the time to stop and Google it right then. Until today. For a bit of context, I rarely remember my dreams. When I do, it's because I've had that dream before. All of my memorable dreams have recurred. I have one dream of being stabbed in a parking lot while loading my nibblings, niece and nephew. LOL, that's a real word, I swear. I'd never heard of that. Nibblings.
I've never heard that.
That's so cute. I was imagining like groceries, my nibbles, like nibblings.
Yeah. I was like, what kind of new ice cream is that?
I've had that particular dream since I was approximately 7 years old. Oh, that's so interesting.
Oh.
That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how old Casey was in those stories or in those dreams. Like,
yeah.
And is it Casey's niece and nephew currently?
Right. Yeah. That was more of my question. Like, is it truly them? Are they the same age? Do they have the same names, the same faces?
I don't know. Well, we'll follow up, Casey.
Yep.
But the dream in question has only started in recent years, perhaps the last 3 or 4, maybe longer. I'm not really sure. Time is fake. Yes, it is. In the dream, I'm in a building and it feels like this building could be 10,000 floors high because every time I get to a staircase or a door, I just keep going. There's no exit. It's an office building. And there are white tiled ceilings with creamy beige walls and maybe beige linoleum flooring. There's a strange yellow glow about the place, like you get from those overhead old office lamps. But I can't see any light fixtures. It's almost like I've got tunnel vision. I can't look up or down, just forward and to either side. Certainly not backwards. I'm running through a hallway and I come to a door at the end on the right. I open it and there's an empty office. A large one though, like one that would hold many cubicles. This one does have cubicles, white ones, but they're empty. This floor is not in use. I exit out the other side to find an identical hallway to the one I originally came from, and I start running again. It repeats like this forever. Sometimes there's a stairwell in the hallway, and sometimes the office is occupied, with people sitting at their desks and phones ringing, but no one is paying attention to me. No one can hear me or notice me. But then I notice it. You might ask why I'd be running. And wonder no further, dear ghostesses, for I shall tell you. In all of the times I've had this dream, I've never actually seen the thing that's chasing me. But I know that I'm being chased. I can feel my heartbeat and the very common feeling of anxiety. When I try to picture the thing chasing me, my brain thinks up a tall, skinny, black creature with possibly red eyes. A mix between a shadow and an upright wolf. A huge wolf. Again, I've never seen it in my dreams, so that could be just my mind trying to put a face to it. In all of the dreams, I've always been a few steps ahead of the thing. But there have been times where I, in my dream state, have suddenly felt an overwhelming emotion of fear, anticipation, and anxiety, like when you're seconds away from being caught doing something you are not supposed to be doing. And then right at the peak of these emotions, I wake up. I have vague recollections of speaking to some of the office people, but none solid enough to be worth mentioning and getting people's hopes up. Anyway, now here's where Corinne's mention of the backrooms comes into play. Today, I just got home from work and was sitting down at my kitchen island scrolling through Urban Explorer videos on TikTok, and I had specifically searched that tag because I had seen something on Facebook that intrigued me. I'm probably close to 50 videos into my scroll when I come across an account of a person who's in an abandoned mall that looks like it's straight out of the 90s and had Nickelodeon as inspiration. They have a playlist on their account titled Backrooms. So I click it. I watched maybe 2 more videos before deciding to Google, because then I remembered Corinne's mention of it while I was listening last week. As soon as I Googled it, my mouth got fuzzy and I felt sort of dizzy. It felt like my heart could have stopped, and I definitely held my breath for a second. And I realize this sounds dramatic, but keep in mind my reaction was all within 3 seconds. Pure shock and astonishment. After that, I didn't know what else to do, so I picked up my computer and started writing this email. So what do you think? Do I go to the back rooms in my sleep? What does it mean? Does this remind you of anything else? I never really gave much credence to the dream, and certainly didn't think of it as a paranormal experience, so it's shaken me quite a bit. And I am a Hellenic witch and could consider myself quite spiritually open, but this is by far the most unsettling thing I've ever experienced. Well, apart from my recent realization that I may have also been astral traveling while sleeping. But that's a story for another time, I suppose. Bye for now. See you on the other side. Spacey Casey, she, her.
I mean, Spacey Casey, I think the astral traveling goes perfectly in hand with potentially being in the back rooms, because maybe that 100%. Is the same thing. Those that can consciously astral, well, maybe not consciously, but
or unconsciously,
those who find themselves astral traveling, perhaps that's who finds themselves in the back rooms. It's just so creepy to me that we can see things in real life, like tangible items, videos that people put online, or drawings the artists create and say, this came from my mind, this is made up. And then we're like, but we've actually been there. It's not made up. It lived within you, and you perfectly put it out.
Right. Like, this had been happening to Casey for years. And then we briefly mentioned it. She was curious about what that was, looked it up on TikTok, and then had this realization, oh my gosh, I've been experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And too, it makes me think that maybe the setting, whoever is running the back rooms, whatever this thing is, maybe the setting of the back rooms is inspired by actual places that we have today. So for an urban explorer, perhaps a video that they post online will result in a lot of people saying, this looks so familiar, I've been there before, because somehow in some way that image and likeness has been borrowed for the design of the back rooms that you were put in.
Yeah.
Actually, this is probably what I was talking about in whatever episode Spacey Casey was referring
to. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember specifically there was a time on the internet within the past year or two where there were some images circulating of an actual place in, I think, America. And a lot of people were like, I've been there before, but I know I actually haven't been. So there was just so many people that were like really intense deja vu, really clear memories of being there, or conscious memories of dreaming about that place. But everybody knew that they hadn't actually been there in their current life. So maybe that's another example of it.
A listener story in the past where they talked about going into this house repetitively and there was something chasing them. And then I think we had someone respond to that being like, I think I've been to that same house it was a dream thing.
Oh yes.
And I wonder if, it's kind of like the same idea. Like, what if there are certain places in the ether, the universe, wherever it might be, our timeline, some other timeline, the astral plane, wherever it is, that exists, and multiple people go to it because there's like some draw. I don't know. I mean, I'm theorizing and it's all hypotheses because there's no way to know for sure. But I do wonder if there's just places in the astral plane that we all go to.
Yeah, it could be. It makes sense. I mean, that's what's interesting about this.
I mean, nothing makes sense.
Nothing makes sense, but it does. But I liked talking about the back rooms because I think so many of our other episodes that we researched, there's a lot of fact and there's a lot of history that goes into that. But this is a creepypasta where it's built on lore that's really, really recent, which is why it's so fascinating because we can timestamp when it was created and by who. And yet there's so much more of the internet that exists that predates it of people talking about the same thing and having the same experiences. Yeah. So we don't know what it is, but I think it's fun to talk about lore as well, especially when it does possibly bleed into our reality.
What was your phrasing? Pouring out of ourselves?
What did I say? Leaking?
Oozing?
Did I say?
Leaking out of ourselves.
Yep. It
The
exists
drip.
in our subconscious, and now it's leaking out of us.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
being labeled
Cool.
as lore. Cool. Just
Cool,
a casual spring in our souls, dripping us into the back rooms. But most of us are still fully here. And if you have a few bits of you leaking into the back room, email us. Let us know what happened to you. We're
or
curious.
if you have any encounters, please email them to us to twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com. And also, guys, watch us on YouTube. Guys, gals, ghouls, whatever. Come watch us on YouTube. I am sad that our backgrounds are not. I tried to keep a few Halloween related things.
Yeah, that's
and then
nice.
I don't know who made these for us, but this is the coolest freaking mug.
Oh my gosh.
It says,
I know. They're amazing.
And then on the back it says, we'll be best friends until we die. Then we'll stay ghost friends, walk through walls, and haunt people.
I love it. I'll do it before this episode comes out, but I did take a picture. I thought I was going to solve the mystery and I didn't. But what I was about to say was that when people send us mail, we post them pictures of it on social media. And if someone leaves their screen name or at least their first name, we'll write it and thank people for
Screen name.
Username? I don't know. Now I'm shy.
Their handle.
I was born in the 90s. Leave me alone. But the mystery is still a mystery for the water bottles because I wrote down water bottles, mystery person. We don't have a name.
Okay.
Who sent them?
Well, we'll post them. And if you sent them to us, please respond. And let us know.
Please do.
Yeah.
You can support us in a variety of ways aside from watching our YouTube and listening to us and subscribing and emailing us your stories. You can tell everybody about us. You can rate and review us on iTunes. You can shop our merch online if you're planning on buying any merchandise for friends, loved ones, coworkers, whoever's in your pyramid scheme of Two Girls, One Ghost for the holidays. Just know that I think you're supposed to order it by the first week of December in order to get your items in time for the holidays. Based on what the distribution center we use had suggested.
Yep.
So shop now. And
what else? And then thank you to all of you for listening. And thank you so much to our editors at Upfire Digital, Aiden Manning, Eric Foster, Max Lodian. We're very grateful for all of your help in helping this podcast come to reality.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to all of you. We will see you on the other side.